it's really my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Kerry Howell today. Kerry's been a COBRA partner since the beginning, and we finally got to meet each other in real life last fall out in La Jolla, which was really wonderful. And she's at the University of Plymouth in UK and is going to talk to us today about Challenger 150. So take it away, Kerry.
You are muted. Let's see.
Thank you, which just as well, because I was chattering away to myself. So thanks very much, Julie. And thank you to the COBRA team for giving us the opportunity to talk today about Challenger 150, what it is, what it's done, and what it might be able to do for you. So I'm going to start by going backwards in time a little bit. And some of you may know this and some of you may not, but back at the beginning of 2000, a big global program called the Census of Marine Life started. It ran from 2001 to 2010. It was a 10-year program, and it was a huge international effort undertaken to look at the diversity of life in the ocean, its distribution, and its abundance. And of the 17 different Census of Marine Life programs, 5 of them were about the deep sea. So Comage, Mar-Eco, Senseam, Chess, and CEDAMAR. And they all dealt with different aspects of the deep sea. And many of us started or spent our early careers working on the Census of Marine Life programs. And they were really important programs that did a lot of great work. So at the end of 2010, at the end of the decade, the Census of Marine Life finished. And that was that. And many of us sort of felt like, well, what next? What comes now? And so in 2011, the networks that had formed stayed together as something called INDEEP, the International Network for Scientific Investigation of Deep Sea Ecosystems. And this was a collaborative network of scientists who recognized the importance of trying to work together and do more by being a bit more coordinated about our activities. And then not long after that, the Deep Ocean Stewardship Initiative started. And that was really concerned with taking science into policy. And that network is still with us now and doing incredible work, and actually Challenge is a part of it. And in 2015, a group of us kind of got together and thought, well, hang on a minute, like we need a new program. We need another 10 years. We need to keep this going, keep the momentum up, and keep working together to try to do more. And then we kind of talked about it for a bit. And in 2017, we formed the Decade of Deep Ocean Science Working Group as part of the Deep Ocean Stewardship Initiative Network. So as part of DOSI. And really, we thought we could continue the work of INDEEP. And INDEEP had kind of petered out a bit. So we had a meeting at the Royal Society in London to talk about it in 2018. We set up a working group in 2019 to bring everyone together and have a chat about what we could do and try and make plans. And then finally in 2020, we formed Challenger 150, a program of work designed to really bring people together. And then the Ocean Decade began, and we had 10 years suddenly. So we got Challenger endorsed as an Ocean Decade program, and Challenger was one of the first programs to be endorsed under the Ocean Decade and is devoted to studying life in the deep sea. So what is Challenger 150? Well, it's a global cooperative. So it's a program, but it's a program made up of the willing. It's made up of anyone around the world involved in marine science who can see the value of trying to coordinate and work together a bit more as we go about our business collecting data and studying the deep ocean. So we're a cooperative, and the program is just a vehicle, really, that enables deep sea biologists to coordinate our research to try to achieve more and achieve the objectives of the Ocean Decade. And so our objectives are aligned with the Ocean Decade. They focus on building capacity for deep sea science. It's very well known that there aren't that many nations who do deep sea science because of the expense and the equipment required. And so we want to broaden that. We want to make sure more nations can engage in this science. It's important that they do. But generating new ocean understanding, filling data gaps. We know there are gaps in our understanding of the deep ocean, and we have to try and fill those gaps and build our understanding of the ocean. So the program itself operates via regional working groups. So we have 12 different working groups. And what those groups do is it just is a forum for bringing together scientists who are working in that region. And they might be working on deep sea, or they might be working in shallow water, but are interested in deep water. And so it just serves as a way to bring everybody together to talk about what they're doing in that ocean basin and how they might be able to help each other and coordinate that research more. So the working groups basically coordinate research in that ocean basin, and that helps them to look and prioritize areas for study. So if you know what everyone's up to, then you can see where isn't being covering. So you can figure out where the data gaps are, and then you can work together with your colleagues in that basin to think about new ideas and new funding proposals to try to fill those data gaps. And in doing that, you can also help build capacity for deep sea science by bringing in early career people, by bringing in nations that haven't been engaged in deep sea science before, and building those new projects with those people. But because you're working regionally, you can also work with regional stakeholders. So most of the needs for our science is about helping inform sustainable development. And so organizations that manage fisheries, that manage mining, that manage shipping, that deal with pollution, those people have science needs. And those science needs are local to those regions. And so that regional working group can listen to those stakeholders and interact with them and try to understand what the science needs are for their region and hopefully then act on it. And this will help support the development of science to end user pathways. So the program largely operates through these working groups, the regional working groups, but we do also have technical working groups that try to deal with issues around standards. So, you know, you're collecting data, I'm collecting data, but maybe we're not analyzing it in the same way, or maybe we're not using the same terms, or maybe we're not using the same mechanisms. And so if we can bring people together and work out ways of mapping across between data or translating from one to another, we can pool data together. And that means, again, we can say something much bigger than any one individual project or one individual cruise can say. So these technical working groups then deal with that sort of thing. They can also consider novel technology if there's things coming around and how to bring it into the field. And also deal with then the data. We're collecting data, we may need to put it all in the same format, but what happens to it then? It needs to go somewhere, it needs to be archived so it's accessible for everyone to use in the future. So those working groups can deal with that as well. And develop training materials. So if you're working on standards, if you're working on best practice of how to do things, then you can also develop new training materials to help others know how to do things. So the last group that we have within Challenger is we have one continental focused scientific working group, and that is our fantastic African network of deep water researchers. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. So the question is, who is Challenger? Well, Challenger 150 is everyone. It's anyone, it's you. It's anyone who wants to engage and get involved in the work of Challenger. So if you want to be part of a regional group, you can just join. If you want to be part of a technical group, you can just join. And in doing so, you become part of the Challenger effort. It's no one person's vision, it's no one person's thing. It's our community's program. And so it is you and me and everybody else. But all programs need some people to herd the cats. They need people who are willing to kind of take responsibility for organizing the meetings and bringing people together. And so Challenger 150 is coordinated by myself and Anna Hilario, who's on the call. And so we try to kind of keep everyone moving along in the same direction. But the regional working groups are led by this wonderful bunch of people who take care of bringing people together, of holding the meetings, of trying to take the minutes and trying to keep people in touch. And we're really grateful to them for the work that they do. And they're a dedicated team of volunteers. I think that's important to note. Challenger is largely made up of volunteers and people doing this in addition to their day jobs. So we also have our African network of deep water researchers, and that's coordinated by these good people you can see here, Kirsty, Agnes, and Isa. And then we have some of our technical working groups. So Jamie Davis coordinates the litter group, I coordinate the image group. And then we are also supported by our parent program, DOSI, and Bernadette Buckfield, who you can see here, and she helps us with the communications on the project. And so that helps us have the website and try to keep our social medias happening. So those are the people. How is it funded? Well, I've already mentioned. It's a lot of volunteering. It's a lot of people giving their time because they believe in what the program is trying to do. The science aspects of it and some of the capacity building is all funded by the endorsed projects. So Challenger is also made up of different research projects that have been funded by various means. And so a lot of the work goes on in the projects themselves. The coordination between the projects and of the program as a whole, so myself and Anna, is not funded. It is entirely voluntary. And the support for the comms I've mentioned comes from DOSI. So who are endorsed projects? Well, I can list them here. There are, I'm saying 9, but also COBRA. I'm never sure if COBRA's COBRA is certainly our partner, and we work very closely with COBRA. But COBRA is a network of networks in their own right. So they're an endorsed program in their own right. But we have all these projects that are part of the Challenger effort. And so when you look at how those projects are distributed, you can see that there are programs like Neep Deep, Charisse is online, working in the Pacific, SmartX, Deep Rest, all working in the Clarion-Clipperton fracture zone. There's quite a lot of projects in the Atlantic going on, but spread all the way down the Atlantic. And we also have Alute Bio over there in the Pacific as well. So you can see already that, the science going on, the projects are, following sort of similar patterns that I'm going to show you here. And we have nothing in the Indian Ocean. So that's, there's a gap there, and there's a gap in the Southern Ocean. But we have these great projects working throughout the Atlantic and parts of the Pacific. So what has Challenger done? It's 2024, right? So we're technically 3 years into the ocean decade. And in that time, there have been 33 research cruises that have flagged themselves as contributing to the Challenger effort. So there's many more cruises than that have happened. But these cruises, the PIs, have said, yeah, we want to contribute. We're happy to say we're part of this project and we can help in whatever way we can. So again, you can see it's great coverage. But yeah, just the 2 cruises in the Indian Ocean. We're doing better. So Challenger's published some papers. So we started by setting out our plans for the decade with a couple of papers back in 2020, and lots of people got involved and were able to co-author those papers and contribute. But now the regional groups are actually doing reviews of what we know about deep sea science in each of the regions. So we have a review of the Central and South Atlantic that's already come out. There's an Arctic review they've just got the final comments back from it, so that hopefully will be accepted in the next couple of weeks. The North Atlantic team have got a review that's really near submission. The Northeast Pacific team have a review that's near submission. And those other regional groups are all starting to prepare a review and a benchmark of where we are. What do we know about the deep sea here and now at the beginning of the ocean decade? So Challenger has brought together experts in the region through these regional working groups, but also in special sort of mini symposium events, just to kind of understand what science is going on in each of these regions. So in year 1, the Northwest Pacific group, it was all during COVID, so they got online and had a sort of mini symposium and shared their research with each other. And in year 2, the Arctic team did the same, but they got to meet in person. and have a meeting to talk about the science that's going on in the Arctic. What's everyone up to? How can we start to think about working together? And most recently, we had a workshop at a whole Atlantic scale, so the North and the South Atlantic group. Representatives of that got together to talk about a new project to try and map the biology throughout the Atlantic region. And that work was funded by a variety of funders, but it was really only leveraged and possible because of the existence of the Challenger program, which helped encourage funders to see, what more could be achieved. So we've built an understanding of what biodiversity data are accessible. So this is, again, work that goes on through the working groups. But here what I'm showing you is data from the OBIS data set. So all the little red dots are records of species from the Ocean Biogeographic Information System, Biodiversity Information System, sorry. And this is just the benthic records. So this is just showing you, what we know about the seabed. And you can see already there are huge gaps in our knowledge. And the pink dots are the exercise we just went through in the Atlantic in trying to understand what additional data might be available for use if we can process it. So we're doing this sort of thing, trying to amass data, trying to understand where the gaps are. And that will help us to identify what needs to be done. And I should say there's another really fabulous effort going on through another program called the Ocean Discovery League, who are doing a sort of similar exercise, but they're doing it globally. So that's fantastic to know. So what else have we done? We've been coordinating and supporting the development of new research cruise proposals to try and fill data gaps. Okay, and that's working in partnership with our Schmidt Ocean Institute, our partners of the Challenger program, the partners in the Decade, the partners of lots of programs. And they have this plan of what they're going to do over the next 10 years. And so in our regional working groups, we've been trying to work together to develop proposals that yeah, sure, work for nations and work for individual interests, but they also work at that basin scale. They're also trying to cover the gaps and to do consistent activities across those basins so we can think about pooling data later in the decade. And then there are opportunities as well for that to happen as well through our partners, RevOcean, who are committed to the project as well, and will be working in different areas to the Schmidt Ocean Institute, and also within the European Union, a new program called Aquarius, which is providing access to ship time for European scientists. And so that can help us fill data gaps in the Med and in the North Atlantic. So capacity building is a huge part of Challenger. It's really, really important to us. And so we've been doing quite a lot of work in capacity building. And this work is achieved through the working groups and through the continental network, the African network of deep sea researchers, deep water researchers, but also via the projects. So I'm just going to give you a few examples of how we've been tackling this in the working groups in the continental network, the African network. So within our regional working groups, in the Southeast Pacific Regional Working Group and in the Central and South Atlantic Regional Working Group, we have been discussing where the data gaps are, asking people who are interested in those areas to think about cruise proposals, supporting people to write cruise proposals, because many nations have not engaged in deep sea science before. And so the idea of writing a cruise proposal is just, really quite I don't know, difficult. So some of us have done it before, some of us haven't, and we who have can help those who haven't and try to encourage proposals that will support the nation's needs, but also help fill the data gaps in the ocean basin. And so at the moment, we've been really heavily focused on this area here, and that's a key area for us at the moment. In recognizing that deep sea research has traditionally not necessarily been prosecuted, particularly around the African nation and particularly in the South Atlantic, which is a massive data gap. We've been working with our colleagues on the African continent, who have formed this fantastic network, the African Network of Deepwater Researchers. And so this is a network of African scientists that is supporting and bringing together those expertise on the continent. And that network has done some fantastic work in holding workshops, in looking at what the challenges are, in building on the work of other ocean programs who have looked at barriers to deep sea science. They've taken gone on from that to look at, well, what can we actually do about it? We recognize there are all these barriers, but what can we do to change things? And this fantastic report came out in March this year from that network, highlighting practical actions that we can take and we can support one another to take to strengthen capacity for deep water research on Africa. And that, again, that work was funded by a diverse range of funders, and it was really possible to do that because of the Challenger program. We could leverage funding for this, and that really helped, get action and get things moving. So that then led on to more workshops. So recognizing that one of the barriers was writing proposals and even getting started. We again were able to leverage funding from other sources on the back of that to bring together a group of people in a workshop. So folks from Kenya came, from South Africa, from Nigeria, to talk about, let's think about some new projects and who can lead on those and how can we target particular funders. There are many funders, particularly in the global north, who are looking for projects like this to fund. And so, we can help match people, ideas to funding. So in that same vein then, looking at developing new projects, particularly along the African margins that help start deep sea science in country with equipment that's available, with expertise that are available. There's also this opportunity, again, through working with the likes of Schmidt Ocean Institute, to then support African scientists to put proposals together for that 2027, 2028, and also 2029 area that borders the African continent. And so we've been working with the African Network of Deepwater Researchers to start to think about proposals and what those might look like. And as well, through the regional working groups, we've been asking the PIs who have been putting proposals in for the 2025 Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil region, if they could maybe make berths available for scientists coming from the other side of the Atlantic, just to give people the experience of being on board a ship and to start to think about what might be possible in their own waters and what their proposal might look like. So we're trying to share expertise, share knowledge, share opportunity in this way. And, it's not just limited to the South Atlantic. Elva Escobar, who's circled here, she's the lead, the co-lead of the Caribbean region working group. And she was able to organize a deep ocean course at the University of Costa Rica back in 2023 to help bring early career researchers into deep sea science. And again, she was able to leverage funding from SCORE to fund that work. And it was through the relationship to Challenger, which SCORE also funded initially to get us started. So it really helps having this program that enables us to leverage additional funding that can support initiatives like this. And I want to mention the deep ocean training expeditions as well. So our partner, RevOcean, at the start of the Ocean Decade, committed to Challenger 18 days a year of ship time devoted to training early career researchers and researchers from developing nations and giving them the experience of going to sea. And although Rev has had holdups with their ship, we're hopeful that will be coming online soon. But in the meantime, we've been able to have expeditions using facilities in Europe. And recently we had this one that Anna was leading, Anna's online, which went to Avera Canyon and had undergraduate students and graduate students from Portugal, Spain, Angola, and Malaysia on board to get that experience of ship time. So that's all examples of things that have been done through the working groups, through the continental networks, but a lot of the capacity building work is done through the projects themselves because they are funded. And so many of them have funding for capacity building work. And the African Network of Deepwater Researchers has been able to achieve a lot because Kirsty McQuaid was actually funded full-time to do that by a project called One Ocean Hub. Sadly, that funding's coming to an end. And so it will now be a voluntary situation. But, it just goes to show that bit of funding from the One Ocean Hub that could fund Kirsty's time, was able to do so much, and then through that, then leverage other things. And this is a really good example of what Challenge is about. It's about leveraging more from individual projects by working together. That project also was able to fund another cruise in South Africa. This lady here, Kerry Howell, was the brains behind that. And this supported early career researchers from South Africa and Namibia to develop skills in offshore research. And so some young researchers went to sea and got their first experience of working on a vessel in offshore waters. And the cruise was brilliant because it established the record for the deepest lander dive in South African waters, which was at just over 1,000 meters, which is fantastic. So the technical working groups as well. So the image analysis working group that I'm coordinating at the moment. A lot of the work through that has been also funded via the One Ocean Hub project. So we were able to launch a standardized catalogue of imagery to help people standardize what they're calling things, called Smarter ID. We were able to deliver online training in annotation of imagery, and that has gone far beyond the One Ocean Hub project, and involved lots of people from within the Challenge network. And we were also able to publish a training manual that people can now refer to as well. And that's helped more than just that project. It's helped anyone throughout the Challenger program. I have to mention Neep Deep, which is this person here, Charisse Dupree, who's online. Sorry, Charisse, to embarrass you. But this program is just doing incredible work of capacity building and working with Indigenous communities and in deep ocean science and building capacity and doing discovery, remarkable work. And again, it's so wonderful to have a project like that feeding into a program like Challenger, which can look at all that capacity building that's going on across those different projects. So what is the plan for the remaining years of the decade? Well, so we'll continue to develop reviews for the regions. So many of the regions are still working on their reviews, and that will give us a baseline for where we are in this decade. What do we know about the deep ocean in this decade? We'll continue to identify available data and collate metadata, although Ocean Discovery League are doing a fantastic job there. So, that's great. We can work with that. And that will help us all know what is available, what data is actually out there and who owns it, who can we go to ask for it, to actually try and work together. We'll continue to actively coordinate to fill data gaps. I mean, that's the whole point. Try to standardize or translate our data between the projects and bring it all together to ideally deliver some basin scale understanding by the end of the decade. Continue to broaden the science base, continue that capacity building work, and encouraging others to do so. And ultimately mapping and modeling to enable forecasting. The reason we need these large data sets is so that we can better predict the consequences of our decisions as we use our ocean more. So we'll continue to work with our partners, Schmidt and Revotion, and our additional partners that we work with. So Seabed 2030, COBRA, fantastic, DOSI, IDOS, and there are many, many more that we work with. But what else will we do? Well, I just wanted to say the truth is it's up to you. Challenger is the people who participate in it. And what they want to do is what the program does. So what can it do for you? Well, you can see it can help get you involved in publications. You can help grow your network and expand your opportunities. It could help you develop a funding bid or be part of a new funding bid that's developing or a research cruise proposal. It can help support your funding proposal and show its wider importance in this global stage. It could help your funded project, if you have a project already, achieve more through that regional collaboration. You can support capacity building efforts, or we can help support your capacity building efforts. Help you find appropriate funding mechanisms if that's your problem. I've shown you that we've been able to leverage funding from sources to do much more than individual projects have been able to. So we could help you leverage funding and give greater visibility to your science and to our whole community. What can you do for Challenger? Well, help us deliver the science we need for the ocean we want. You can join a regional working group. You can flag your ship time as contributing to this global effort. You can endorse your funded project under Challenger and be one of those projects that's contributing. You can support regional capacity building efforts. If you have skills, share them with others. Join those groups and help build capacity. You can leverage funding that you have access to and provide opportunity for others. And you can help keep deep sea science on the global agenda. So I'll finish there because I think I've probably gone horribly over, I'm sorry. But if you'd like to sign up to Challenger, there's a QR code there that leads you to a form that you can sign up to. And yeah, please feel free to join the effort. Everyone's welcome, and there's enough to be done. Thank you.